On that note. Oh my god. I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it.
Travis's birthday's on the 31st.
Don't forget to write that down. No, wait, that's Van Wilder. My bad.
It's so stupid.
Alright, guys. Welcome back to another week of the Talk Before You Run podcast. I want to start this out by telling everybody Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy October, Spooktober, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, October Spooktober.
Yeah.
So to continue, man's how it is Halloween. Today we are going to talk about the origins of Halloween and basically where it started and how it transitioned and how when it came over to America it became what we know as the holiday today. And to start this, we got to go back thousands of years. And when I say thousands of years, I mean thousands of years. A really long time.
We'll just hop in the old TARDIS, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna. I don't know what that is, but yeah.
That's the time machine from Doctor Who.
Oh, so we're gonna hop in the time machine from Doctor Doom. That thing.
Doctor Who.
Oh, Doctor Who, not
Night.
Doctor Doom. Something like that. The Doctor, the one that times
There you
travels.
go. There you go.
So like I said, it started thousands of years ago, and it started with the Celt people on October 31st. They believed on that day that the veil between our world and the afterlife was at its thinnest. And on this day would have been October 31st. And they called it Samhain. Oh my God, solemn. We're going to get there.
Eventually.
Has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings.
No, it has. Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it did take its origins from there. I'd be lying if I told you. I might even be saying it wrong. I mean, there's a possibility that that's the case too. So like I said, they believed that on this day, on the day of Solemn, was the start of what they would consider to be the dark side of their calendar. So they had it split between the light and the dark. And on this celebration of this day, they actually celebrated the dead. And because of this, they celebrated the dead in order to basically hope for good crops during the winter time. And when they would do these celebrations, of course, they would do these celebrations around bonfires and stuff like that. And there's not a whole lot that's actually known about this celebration or really this day in general from back then, but they did believe that the bonfires were meant to attract the bats. Because, I mean, of course, back then it wasn't, ghosts, ghouls, goblins, and stuff like that. So back then they believed that the scariest thing in the nights were bats. So, of course, they would light these bonfires, attract the bugs to attract the bats throughout the night. Like I said, when I said they believed that the veil was the thinnest between our world and the world of the dead, they also believed that it was possible for the dead to be trapped on the side of the living and for the living to actually be trapped on the side of the dead. See, me personally, and I mean, it never quite said this, but I also believe that the bonfires could have been like a guiding light.
Like a lighthouse?
Yeah, like a lighthouse to guide them from, the other side back to where they belong.
Mm-hmm. Or I guess I should have said beacon would be a better term.
Most people nowadays will light a candle for people who have passed or open a window. Those kind of things for superstitions to guide the souls to the next life.
I try not to light anything when I pass.
We starting off strong, guys. Starting off strong.
Start with a fart joke. Let's go.
Oh my God. That's funny. Okay. Gotta regain my composure here.
Insert explosion here, please.
That was a good release, Switch.
Here's a good pass.
It blew me away. That's how you know it's a good time, when you can sit here and make fart jokes. But I mean, that's just like I said, it never specifically said that, but I mean, I believe that that could be a possibility, that that's one of the reasons that they celebrated this day, with all things considered, them believing that, you could be trapped on the other side and stuff like that, and the reason why they have these bonfires. But even though very little was known about that, the tradition of celebrating the dead, you'll see, has actually been a big part of modern day Halloween. And I say that because this tradition itself was actually preserved by what they say the Christians, and we believe it to be a blanketed term. But to be more specific, from what I've read and from what I understand, I believe that they're really talking more on like the Catholic religion, which I guess back then was pretty much the main religion.
Yeah, one of the main ones, yeah.
Which is why I think they use the term Christians, but they actually preserved these traditions by adopting pagan traditions and a pagan holiday meant to celebrate the dead called Lemuria. So Lemuria was a holiday that took place on May 13th, and on Lemuria, let me try to make sure that I'm saying this right. The ghost, or the departed, would come back and haunt the living. So on this day, I'm calling it a holiday or tradition. They would take and they would pour milk on top of the graves in order to quell the dead and to keep them from rising. And they would also leave like little cakes and stuff on their headstones. So
putrid milk and cakes.
Yeah, we're just milk and cookies for Santa Claus, milk and cake for the dead. Hey, I mean, I wonder if that's where the tradition of leaving out milk and cookies came from.
I don't know. We'll find out in a couple of podcasts when we do research for Christmas history.
Yeah, in a couple months when we do how Christmas became what it is today. That might actually be a pretty good idea. Glad you said that, Switch.
And I will tell you all the story of how I accidentally scared Santa off my roof, and I had to deliver all the toys, and I became Santa Claus.
Oh my god.
I'm joking. That was a movie plot.
Right,
yeah, I know. Trust me, we know.
One of my favorite movies too.
Oh, I love the Santa Claus movies.
Oh yeah.
So like I said, this holiday was, they would pour the milk on the graves and stuff like that in order to quell the dead. So in 1609, the church actually turned Lemuria into what was known as All Saints Day. Now, All Saints Day might be a day that more people have heard of, or maybe not. If not, you'll figure out what it is right now. So All Saints Day was a day that the church came up with in order to celebrate the most holiest of the people in the church who have passed away and have died. In order for them to grow their congregation and grow their beliefs and stuff like that, was kind of the main reasoning for them to adopt this day and to change it. But they decided on moving the day to November 1st, the day after Solemn. And the reasoning behind them doing this is to take the attention away from Solemn and bring it over to their holiday religion, the whole works.
They just wanted more parishioners so they can have power, so they had to change the perspective of their people to make it seem good. There's a lot of it going on through the histories.
Yeah, I mean, if you got something that's already established and well known, why not feed off of it? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's basically what they did by, moving All Saints' Day to November 1st. And like I said, they did that back in 1609. So that's tells you right there, that was a long time ago. But, of course, Solemn being on October 31st, and them moving All Saints' Day to November 1st. And actually, when they moved All Saints' Day to November 1st, Halloween, well, not Halloween yet, but October 31st, the day of Solemn, had actually become known as All Hallows Eve. And when it became known as All Hallows Eve, then it became All Hallows Evening, and then eventually turned into Halloween.
Yay, candy.
Well, I mean, when you think of Halloween, that's what it's known for, basically. So, and the reason why it became known as All Hallows Eve is because All Saints' Day had then been changed to All Hallows Day. And then, of course, in order to kind of strengthen that, they then took November 2nd and turned it into All Souls Day. All Souls Day became a thing to remember all Christians that had passed away and to gather prayer for the souls that they believed were trapped in purgatory or the void, or it's basically the space between heaven and hell. So they believe that if they can gather up enough prayers for these souls that were trapped in purgatory, the children on All Souls Day, or even the adults and stuff like that, would start to go around and ask for what they call soul cakes. Soul cakes being a cinnamon cake with raisins on the inside, or a spiced cake with raisins on the inside.
That sounds gross.
It really does, honestly.
I'm
It's
just
because
not a
there's
raisin
I
raisins.
don't know. I'd try it.
Well, me and Switch is on the same page. It's because there's raisins in it. I'm not a raisin person.
You're a weirdo.
I like my grapes hydrated.
Did you know that raisins are only called raisins because they're grapes without hydration? It's all about raising awareness.
All right, Switch.
Alright, I'm gonna go slam my head into a wall now.
So, because of this, that's actually the reason why Halloween is now associated with the dead. I mean, even more associated with the dead, should I say. So basically, right now, Halloween during this time was just basically like what Christmas Eve is today.
Did you know it's also called Mischief Night or Goosey Night?
Is that Halloween night or is that the day before Halloween?
Before.
Before.
Yeah. So, all right. So, yeah. So, basically, Halloween then was what Mischief Night or Goose Night? That's what you said?
Goosey
Night is to Halloween today.
Does that mean the previous days of the week before Halloween or Goosey Night are considered duck nights?
Duck Night.
You knew exactly where I was going with that.
I did know exactly where you was going.
Why?
Hey, it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
So, but because of them going around and ask for these soul cakes and stuff like that, that's kind of what we see as like the earliest form of trick-or-treating. Now, of course, it's not quite what trick-or-treating is nowadays, but I mean, you can basically fit all of it in together as, the earliest form of trick-or-treating.
We went from raisins to candy corn.
Yeah, two really, really, really bad choices. And, okay, so not only, of course, that's where we get like the earliest form of trick-or-treating, but back then is where we also got the earliest forms of masks and why we wear masks on this day, or really, of course, it's still November 2nd that we're talking about, not Halloween itself. But one of the earliest forms of masks being used during these celebrations was when these people who would go out and beg for these treats or the food and the drink and stuff like that were often very, very intoxicated and very drunk. So when they would go out and they would make these threats for the treats and stuff like that, they would also get very destructive. So they would start wearing these masks in order to hide their faces and their identities. That's kind of where we get the mask things from. And as far as the costumes go, they would actually, not the ones that are drunk and belligerent and destroying stuff, but they would have groups of people that would go out dress in costumes and they would perform for people. Like they would go door to door, kind of like Christmas carolers would do, door to door, and perform these little shows for these people. And more often than not, their rewards for this would be food and drink. So that's kind of, like I said, that's where our precursor to what today's trick-or-treating would be. It ends up getting taken a step further with the masks and the costumes and the celebrating out in the streets and stuff like that, and more populated areas, because a lot of this stuff was actually happening in more rural areas than it was these largely populated cities and stuff like that, was due to a guy named Guy Fawkes. I didn't mean to say it like that. I would have confused myself if I wouldn't have stepped back and thought about it for a second. Was because of a guy named Guy Fawkes. Now, Switch, you know a little bit more about that story than I do. You want to explain who that is?
I know the basics. Guy Fawkes, I don't remember exactly when. I know it was way back in a long time ago. So Parliament was doing something, I don't remember exactly the specifics, were doing something tyrannical government-wise, and Guy Fawkes, his plan was to blow it up using gunpowder, sorry, and it failed.
5 barrels of gunpowder, to be precise.
Okay. And there's a poem written about it, which is a pretty good one. It's essentially, when you hear someone quote it, it would be, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know for no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgotten.
Yeah, so like he said, or like he said in the poem and stuff like that. So November 5th was then designated as Guy Fawkes Day. So Guy Fawkes Day, they would go out in the streets, they would drink, they would party, they would dress up, and they would have bonfires in the remembrance of Guy Fawkes. So, number of years later, this is where Puritan Christians come into play. So Puritan Christians then started to settle over into the New World, or what we know today as North America and the USA. And as they were coming over here, they didn't believe in the celebration of the dead. So they didn't believe in any celebration of evil whatsoever. And of course, the dead being looked at as celebrating evil or celebrating spirits and stuff like that. So they tried to... Oh, go ahead, Switch.
Sorry, I was thinking that's kind of weird because the Americas were heavily populated by the indigenous Indians and Spaniards. So, and Spanish has the Day of the Dead, which is basically Spanish Halloween.
Yeah.
Without the candy.
Well, see, that's why the Puritan Christians coming over here were kind of wanting to abolish that, stay away from it, and not have it brought over here with them. But unfortunately, they were too late, because Guy Fawkes Day celebrations started to take place in the New World, which then kind of, it paved the way for modern day Halloween here. And, they just apparently couldn't stop it. But, hey, then we wouldn't have all the candy and stuff nowadays if they would have stopped it. Some of the first Halloween stories, now this is skipping way ahead now, were actually stories that were told about Civil War fighters that had either died or were missing after the war that were not claimed or could not be identified coming home to their families. And that's of course Halloween stories, scary stories and stuff like that. That's also a really big part of modern day Halloween. I mean, look at all the horror movies that are made and stuff like that. And, you sit around the fire, tell ghost stories and stuff like that. Well, of course, this was the version of that back then because, of course, like I said, it still wasn't the whole witches and ghouls and goblins and stuff like it is nowadays. Back then, it was real life things. And, who was it? Stephen King said it best. We come up with scary stories to cover up the real ones. And this was the form of real scary stories. And now, of course, nowadays it's serial killers, slashers, and stuff like that, which covers up the real serial killers and slashers of today. But another really, really big, really well-known tradition of Halloween is that of jack-o'-lanterns. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this back over to Switch, and he's going to explain to you that story.
Right. One version of the practice may have originated from an Irish legend, which first appeared in the print of 19th century, about a man nicknamed Stingy Jack. According to the story, Stingy Jack invited the devil to a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin so they can buy their drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to pocket the money, quite literally, and inside the pocket there was a silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. Eventually, Jack freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that should Jack die, he would never claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up there, Jack carved a sign of a cross into the tree's bark so the devil could not get down from the tree. The devil promised Jack to not bother him for another 10 years. Soon after Jack died, as the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavory figure into heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him, and keeping true to his word, would not allow Jack into hell. He sent Jack off into the dark night with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put this coal into a carved turnip, and has been roaming the earth with it ever since. The Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern, and then simply Jack-o'-lantern. The story likely drew on a parallel etymology of the term jack-o'-lantern or Jack of the Lantern, as akin to Will o' the Wisps, a mysterious light seen in wooded, swampy areas at night, sometimes with natural causes, other times as a result of mischievous children lighting lanterns. And that's how that happened.
Yeah, and speaking of mischievous children lighting lanterns, like Switch said, it was originally turnips that they would carve and place a candle in or something like that. And Pineapple brought to our attention that it was also
Beets and
potatoes.
Yep.
Did you know some college dorms, because they're not allowed to have jack-o'-lanterns, started doing it with pineapples? I bet it smells good. To light a candle inside of a pineapple.
I bet it made some other people really confused.
Right?
That's neither here nor there, but
let's swing on into the next topic.
If I could throw a shoe as far as it would take to smack you in the forehead, I would have done it already. Twice.
Look, if you had to throw it that far, I would see it coming from a mile away. I'd just duck.
You're too tall to duck.
Okay. Well, then
I just heard what Switch said.
Wait, what did Switch say?
I said then goosey after you said you duck.
Oh my god. I didn't even catch that. I'd catch
Another
that
fun
shoe
fact.
though. Okay.
Sure you would.
Fun fact.
Anyways, candy corn was originally called chicken feed.
And for those of you who don't know
Tasty.
why it's called chicken feed, it's because you feed chicken corn, aka candy corn, aka chicken feed.
You know, I like candy corn a whole lot better than I like fruitcake.
Yeah, I don't like either one.
I've never had fruitcake.
You're not missing anything.
No. You know, I'm pretty sure only one fruitcake goes around every year.
I'm pretty sure if even my Sims get upset eating fruitcake, I'm good.
I say that, but I do believe my daddy likes fruitcake.
That's just gross.
Yeah, he can have that. I don't want it. But back to the whole jack-o'-lantern and turnip thing. So it wasn't actually until it made its way over here to the U.S. that it became pumpkins. Of course, got to do it bigger, got to do it better. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say better, but bigger for sure.
Well, that was because the potatoes, beets, and turnips weren't as readily available here in America as the pumpkins were available. And, capitalism, pumpkins were way cheaper at the time. So they're like, oh, yeah, we'll just save some money.
And carve out pumpkins instead.
Exactly.
Which paved the way to what is modern day jack-o'-lanterns. But what I want to touch on is how when you said that the what it was, a willow in the
wisp of the willows.
Wisp of the willows, and how it was
often
little
wisps.
Yeah, how it was often like children with the jack-o'-lanterns and stuff like that. So that kind of brings into the tricks that were played around the time of Halloween, hence, the Night of Mischief and stuff like that, which was the name of the day before Halloween, Mischief Night and Goosey Night. Duck came before that, but that's beside the point. So at the turn of the 20th century or early 20th century, they would actually take these pumpkins as one of these tricks, and they would put it on the end of sticks. And they would carve the face out into it and put a candle in it. And they would actually take these pumpkins and they would stick them in people's windows. So while they're sitting there doing whatever it is that they're doing, and they turn over and they look and they see a pumpkin, and of course it would startle them and stuff like that. Which, I mean, that was, a funny little quirky prank or something like that. But also in the early 20th century, the pranks started to get a little bit more aggressive and destructive, to the point to where they was basically destroying people's property, and they would let out people's cattle and stuff like that. So the night before actually became known as Gate Night, in order to raise awareness and to let people and remind people that they needed to make sure that their gates were locked with padlocks or whatever, to keep the kids from being able to let their cattle out to roam free. And because of the fact that it started to get so destructive and stuff like that, now also keep in mind, this is around the same time of the Great Depression and stuff like that. So people didn't have the money to be able to replace the property that was destroyed and stuff like that. I mean, they were setting fires in the middle of the streets. They were taking people's carriages and they were taking them apart and putting them back together on people's roofs and stuff like that. I mean, it was these tricks that were really getting out of hand and stuff like that. So in order to try to get it under control, that's whenever they started coming up with like these big elaborate parties, and they would sit there and have like costume contests and games and all kinds of stuff to kind of deter them from going out on these nights and, basically tearing stuff up. And that's where we really start to see Halloween take its shape.
This is where we found out that Apple was responsible for the very first dating game, right?
The very first dating game?
Yeah, bobbing for apples.
Oh, yeah.
Oh! Yeah! So, some Halloween rituals were used to be geared toward finding a husband. You guys said bobbing for apples was one of them. So basically, when bobbing for apples, the winner was supposedly the first to be married. The scariest ritual that I could find when it came to finding a husband. Do you guys remember doing Bloody Mary as a kid?
I did it once.
Yes, I do
Just
remember.
going into your bathroom, turning off the lights, and chanting her name. Well, these dingbats would go into a dark room holding a candle in front of a mirror. And if anybody is into the ghosty stuff, you know that's a bad idea from the start. And they would look to see if their future husband's face would appear in the glass. Ma'am, you were looking for a demon. But do as you must.
But
No wonder everybody was freaking witches back then. You were
well,
possessed.
when you're playing with the things that you shouldn't be playing with in the dark, spooky night, that happens. But I also want to say this. With the bobbing for apples thing, just because you was the first one to get the apple doesn't mean you was the first one to be taken home. It was also a thing for the guys. Whoever can hold their breath the longest, that's the one they were taking home first.
I wonder why.
Have y'all ever actually played bobbing for apples?
I have.
As a party game?
Yes.
I've done it once as a kid. Forever ago. I wasn't very good at it, so.
Well,
I've never done that.
it only becomes weird if you do it in a Catholic church. Okay, that's neither here nor there. We're going to continue on. So, like I said, they started to come up with these different ways to try to, distract them from the destructive behavior and stuff like that. So, it kind of worked, but it also didn't at the same time. So, they realized that they needed something more. They needed something else that would kind of really immerse them into, getting away from this stuff like, setting the fires and stuff and destroying everything. So that's when trick-or-treating became trick-or-treating, okay? So the tradition itself, like we said, if you look back to the medieval times with the soul cakes and stuff like that, so the tradition's been around for thousands, hundreds of thousands, however long, a long time. The term itself, the term trick-or-treating, is actually less than 100 years old. That's my little fun fact, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, the term is actually less than 100 years old. And the term became a thing because what they would do is these homeowners would actually basically buy off these kids from, destroying their property by giving them homemade treats like candied apples and stuff like that in order to, prevent from them being tricked, basically. And that's how trick-or-treating became a thing.
In sign language, before the middle finger was the bird, it meant trick or fool.
I didn't know that.
Huh. No wonder that kid flipped me off when he was trick-or-treating.
But back to the whole candy thing, like, of course, at this point in time, which was, of course, the 1920s, the 1930s, and this time period, candy companies selling candies marketed towards, like, Halloween and stuff like that wasn't a big thing until, like, Mars bars and, like, Hershey and stuff like that all started to kind of, realize that they can make money off of this. So they started marketing their candy and stuff like that for Halloween. And, of course, that's how we get, you walk into a store nowadays on Halloween and the shelves full of candy. All basically in order to keep kids from destroying other people's stuff. I don't want to condone this, but, I mean, that's basically, if you destroy people's things, you'll get nice things from it in the future.
So what you're telling me, in order to get as many Midnight Milky Way bars, my favorite candy,
Go break a bunch of
have to
people's
take
stuff.
Okay, got it. Noted.
I was just about to ask y'all what y'all favorite Halloween candy is.
Now you know mine.
That's a good question. See, because I'm not like a big chocolate person.
I'm not either.
But I will definitely get into some like Reese's cups.
Oh yeah,
I will
my
eat.
all-time favorite.
Yeah, I will eat the hell out of Reese's cups. I like Reese's cups mostly because I like peanut butter. So yeah, that's kind of how trick or treating became a thing. And it's kind of cool when you look at it and you really take it all in and think about it. How it started with going door to door and asking for soul cakes. And then now you can go to door and get king size candy bars. It's kind of weird when you think about it. And then of course it's a tradition that started forever ago in a completely different country, and then kind of died off for however long, and then in the 1920s started right back up. It just goes to show, if you give kids candy, they're better. So if you don't give them candy, they're destructive. See, usually you would think that would be the other way around with hyping them up. Do y'all know what happened in 1966?
Yeah, no, I wasn't there.
Well, you might not have been there, but
I still don't have a clue though.
Pineapple? You know what happened in 1966?
Well, no.
Okay. Let's go a little bit before that. Of course, with like Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin. I think that was what it was called.
Yes.
Came out on TV. Looney Tunes started doing things that were directed towards Halloween. But all of that stuff was for kids. So in 1966, Halloween made its way to TV, and the movie industry basically pointed and made for adults with John Carpenter's movie that he directed, director John Carpenter, in 1978 with the movie Halloween. So in 66, it come to TV, but was based for children, like I said, with Looney Tunes and Charlie Brown and all that stuff. And in 1978, John Carpenter released his movie Halloween, which was literally meant for adults. It was their way.
My nana loves that movie.
Oh, the Halloween movies are great. I love them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what paved their way for what we know today to be Halloween movies. And the reason why we have the Halloween costumes that we have nowadays is because of this movie. And, I never knew that, okay? I always thought, Halloween costumes, that was just how they were. But because of this movie, and because of this guy who just puts a mask on and goes around killing people on the night of Halloween, is the reason why we have, of course, the Jasons, the Freddy Kruegers, of course, Michael Myers himself, being how that was the character in the movie. All of these characters basically spawned from this movie, and is the reason why we see them so much today in what we see in modern day Halloween.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you know who has been in the most horror movies?
Who's that?
Christopher Lee. He was the original Dracula. You might know him better as Count Dooku from Star Wars, or Saruman from Lord of the Rings.
I'm trying to think, but for some reason I can't put a face to the I know the characters that you're talking about, but I can't put a face to it.
He played Dracula the most times, I believe. I think he was also the first person to ever play Dracula, and that was pretty much his role.
That's interesting. But you want to know another fun fact about the movie Halloween?
Sure.
So did you know that the mask that Michael Myers wears was actually supposed to be a replica mask of William Shatner?
I didn't know that until the other day when we were discussing when we were practicing, I guess,
Yeah.
and it kind of just slipped by, and I didn't like register it at first. But
So
afterwards, like, really, in Shatner?
the movie Halloween was on such a low budget. In order for them to find a mask, they went to this, little shop that was just kind of like this off the wall shop. And they found this mask, and like I said, it was supposed to be a replica mask. It was supposed to look like William Shatner, but it was like so elongated and distorted and stuff like that. They actually had to paint it and dress it up for the movie. But that's actually what it was supposed to be, a replica of William Shatner. So we could thank William Shatner for our Halloween masks.
You know, the ghost face mask was made by a small company, and they were contacted by the people who were making the movie, and they didn't actually know that it was going to pop off like it did. And I don't think they got the rights to the mask, if I remember correctly. But they're still allowed to use it, but they don't own the rights. The company still does, I believe.
Did you know it's the ghost face mask is the most popular selling item in Spirit Halloween right now because of TikTok.
I used to have one, but it came with a pump that was shaped like a little heart.
Oh yeah, and it had the fake blood that went down the face.
Yeah,
I had one like that too.
I was out at a restaurant one time, pizza place, and I had it on, and I was just giving this little kid a dead block stare, and then I squeezed it, and he crapped.
I have my last fun fact for you guys.
All right. What's the last fun fact?
Harry Houdini died on Halloween in 1926. Huh. Would you like to know how?
Yes.
Asphyxiation.
The famous magician, I said musician for some reason. Magician, illusionist, and entertainer died from, I'm not going to say it right. Forgive me. Basically, it caused its Parentian contradicting reports did surface at the time. Say a band of angry spiritualists poisoned him. Others say that it was a student punching him in the stomach with his permission that caused his appendix to burst. Whatever happened, we can all agree it's really on par for him to die on Halloween.
Peritonitis.
So the
Elvis died on the toilet.
Yeah, yes. I have no idea.
That's what my mom always said.
Yeah, but I think that came out as untrue.
Well, I don't think it came out at all. Because he was constipated.
Oh my god.
That's what he gets for having all those peanut butter and banana sandwiches with fluff.
We call those sandwiches.
We're going to drop the peanut butter and banana sandwiches, and y'all start picking up peanut butter and pickle sandwiches.
What do you call a magician with no magic?
What?
Ian.
Switch.
All right, guys. On that note,
you know what Switch is about to be for Halloween?
A magician.
My crystal ball. Jesus.
On that note, guys. On that note. Oh my god. I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose
it. Travis's birthday's on the 31st.
Oh crap! Happy birthday, Travis. We totally forgot to mention that.
Happy birthday, Travis.
Well, not only that, I would also like to wish a happy birthday to Fevno because his birthday is on the same day.
Yeah. And anybody else whose birthday is on October 31st as well.
Yep, and anybody who shares a birthday with us, just know you'll never be as special as me. I'm sorry.
Fevno, I, you know what? Happy birthday, but you're a butt for not showing up. That's your call out for me. Suck it.
Yeah, booty.
Happy Halloween.
This is
I'm just
Halloween.
kidding.
This
Happy
is
birthday.
That's gonna get us demonetized.
Nah.
No.
You didn't say
gotta
enough
be
of it.
you gotta be monetized to get demonetized.
Exactly.
I hope everybody who's watched this podcast has learned something new about the history and the origins of Halloween, and basically how we went from a day that nobody even knows what it was really for to a national holiday that everybody, well, I can't say everybody, but mostly everybody celebrates. We've come a long ways, gentle peoples, and I want to leave you with this. A mask tells us more than the face. That is a quote by Oscar Wilde. If you don't know who that is, just like I don't know who that is, go look him up.
Don't forget to write that down. No, wait, that's Van Wilder. My bad.
You're so stupid.
But I want to wish y'all a spooky night, and I love y'all, and I'll see y'all again next time.
Anyways, I want to wish you guys a happy Halloween. Please be safe out there because the scariest thing that could happen on Halloween is people. Be safe. Do not do sketchy things. And you kids out there, I swear, I have a chocolate for every single one of you. Be good. Have fun trick-or-treating and be safe. I love you.
Hasta lasagna. Don't get any yawn.
Bye-bye.